independency. We try to work and learn from our history to end the fight begun by the great to live in a state of national unity. One people, one nation, one destiny and creed. Lead our people unto their destiny. To play vital roles in building this land to be a nation that will be great and for all to see. One people, one nation, one destiny and creed. I want to build this land that belongs to me.
Basement level vibes with another one, straight up blackness aye. Who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, I do it for the love, him not do it for no money. Straight up, him attack, educating everybody. Big up my friends and big up my family. Turn on the radio, catch the vibes, it's integrity. Straight up, Benskop stands for unity. One people, one nation, one destiny. Free up the truth in the air, even the blind can see. The deaf can hear, the dumb can talk, the cripple can walk. Boom. Who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, we have to gather wrong, grab a seat and sit down, pay attention. Education, liberation, we have to stand strong. Benskop upon the radio, lively up the program. Everybody call somebody and let them turn and tune and on the radio and catch the boom song. We boom it up already, we have to boom it up again. Expose and reveal him. Who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, I do it for the love, him not do it for no money. Straight up, him attack, educating everybody. Big up my friends and big up my family. Turn on the radio, catch the vibes, it's...
Yeah, this is the elite team. The root team. Strong team.
Number one.
PPP team. Yeah. You understand? PPP all the way. Yeah, one Guyana. Yes.
All in the fort for Monday morning.
Yeah.
Hello, this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm, located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
Guyana, really nice. Guyana, it's a nice place.
Yeah, my name is Jacinty Caldata Francis Vietnam, and since 1965 I become a voter, and I always place my ex next to the cop, and what they are doing today, I can't take it. So I have no more vote to give to PPP anymore. I'm not going to vote anymore no more. If they have to lose by one vote, they're losing it by data.
So this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington law firm located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
All right, hey, it's just about 8.5 or maybe 9 minutes after 9 o'clock. My name is Mark Benshop, not the photograph on the screen. That's not me. It could never be me. Certainly not. But let's begin by telling you that this senior police officer, this senior controversial police officer is in all radars are on him in terms of the manner, the conduct of investigations in Guyana and within the Guyana police force. Good evening to all of you. Let your friends, let your neighbors know that we have a packed program this evening, and all of our three guests this evening are attorneys at law. They are lawyers. They are going to be on to talk about what is happening in Guyana as it pertains to the allegations of rape against a 16-year-old girl allegedly by the Minister of Local Government, that is Nigel Dharamlal. Three attorneys tonight, three attorneys at law, no half-baked lawyer, no wannabe lawyer, I'm a half-baked lawyer, but they're real lawyers on tonight. And if you can tell me the three names of those lawyers, I can say you guys are really and truly members of the Straight Up family. So I'll give you guys that opportunity while you share the link. We're watching to see who is sharing the link and who is not sharing the link. And if you don't share the link, you will be suspended from Straight Up 107.1 FM. Good evening again to all of you guys. Paula Jeffers and Desiree Smart Felix and everybody. Queen's Love. Okay, Queen's Love. How are you? Keith Beresford. Good evening, Sean Henry and all. Sean Henry is knocked out of the ring. So let me see if you guys know we got somebody cheating. They inboxed me on WhatsApp asking me who are the attorneys. That's called cheating. I'm not going to do that. That's called cheating. And this person who inboxed me asking me the names of the three lawyers once worked at GCOM. So I now understand where that mentality might be coming from, right? No. Rickford Burke is not a lawyer. So Rickford Burke is definitely out. Anand Prasad, Darren Wade is a lawyer. He's not on. Nigel Hughes is a lawyer. He's not on. Member of Parliament Ford, Roysdale Ford, is a lawyer, senior counsel. He is not on. And so I say to you guys that whoever said Darren and so forth, and Rickford Burke, let me say to you, Anand Prasad, that Rickford Burke is not a lawyer. I did say lawyers, right? I didn't say anybody else. I did say lawyers. And Burke is certainly, at least not as yet, I don't know when, but Burke is not a lawyer. Neither am I. So let us see who you have. Somebody, Gail Hescott says, Shellon, Washington. That is one. Yep, of course. Lawyers who practice in the courtroom and who has a history of practicing in the courtroom. Keith W., you're out. You're out like South. Vanita Waldron is Waldron Anthony, you're out like South. Lawyers who are known to be practicing in the courtroom and lawyers who have that history. Desiree Simmons, you have two correct, one wrong. Shallon practices in the courtroom. Ramjatan does, and yes, Kemraj Ramjatan is on live and direct, live and direct, live and direct. So you guys have two. Miss Washington is on, Kemraj Ramjatan is on, and we should also be joined by another lawyer. These are all lawyers who practice in the courtroom, mind you, in the courtroom. Mr. Selwyn Peters is not on. So Anand Prasad seemed to be, whoever Anand Prasad is got to be a Obia man. So we gonna walk on Anand. Anand is correct. Shellon Washington is on with us this evening. Dexter Todd is on with us this evening. And Kemraj Ramjatan is on this evening. They are all lawyers who practice in the courtroom. We know, based on the fact that they have a history of practicing in the courtroom. All right, so you guys share the link because we are going to share the links tonight. What do you guys think? Let me say this. And Anand Prasad, you won a box of food, a box of cook-up, with a hot cup of dal, compliments of 107.1 FM. You are correct, Anand. Anand says, Shellon, Dexter Todd, that's Miss Shellon Washington, Dexter Todd, and Kemraj Ramjatan. All right, so let's get ready to rock and roll as you guys share the link for this evening. Let's touch on what is your take? What is your take on this guy here? You know, we are hearing that there's an allegation of cover up over another allegation of rape at Gafour's. A very senior official at Gafour's allegedly raped a female worker. And this happened the latter part of last year. We've been told that that matter was covered up. We've been told that it was covered up. And if that's the case, then Mr. Caesar, Mitchell Caesar, whose name has been calling, Mitchell Caesar needs to answer some questions pertaining to that alleged cover-up at Gafour's. Alleged cover-up at Gafour's. So we're not accusing, we're just saying that as a senior police officer, he needs to respond to the allegations of cover-up. He needs to respond to the allegations of cover-up of a rape over at Gafour's by a very, and I repeat, a very senior official there at that business place, very senior. So that is at least one of the things that we want to ask this guy about. And I know they're a group located in the US have been approaching the US State Department with regards to revocation of visas of very senior police officers. We have heard that the controversial, minister has had his visa revoked once again, his US visa revoked once again. At least that is what we have heard. Nothing concrete, but it is what we have heard. And let us see what's going to happen. We have right off to start off with, Miss Washington is with us, we're told. Thank you so much, Lemon, the first to join us this evening. Miss Washington, good evening. No stranger to 107.1 FM. People might think that you are living in the studio, but that's not so. You are always ready to give a few minutes and your opinions on a lot of legal matters, and we appreciate that. Good evening, and how are you, ma'am?
Good evening, Mark. Good evening to all the listeners out there tonight. I'm doing well, and it's a pleasure as always to be here.
Quick question. We haven't heard a word from those guys in the Guyana Barbecue Association. They're always quick to jump and say something and comment and so forth. Nothing at all from the Guyana Barbecue Association as it pertains to this, the allegations of rape by a minister of the government. Nothing from them, the Guyana Bar Association. Are you surprised?
Not at all. When it comes to ethical issues and issues that affects the law, I'm not surprised that the Bar Association doesn't have an opinion. Maybe it's because they don't seem to think about the ramification that this would have on the public at large, that a public official and a member of the government is in hot water. He's in the hot seat right now. And maybe the Bar Association doesn't have an opinion as it regards to either the criminal aspect or the ethical implications of this. So maybe that's why they're silent. They've never came out on a regular to speak on issues which have legal or ethical implications to the Guyanese population. So I am not surprised that they haven't come out now and said anything, period.
Not surprised at all. And I'm almost certain that a lot of folks are themselves not surprised that they haven't come out to say anything. This puts them in kind of like a lot of question marks, because they're usually quick to jump out and speak out supposedly about some inconsequential matters. But here is such an important matter where we saw, in my opinion, rights of the victim have been violated and so forth and so on, and nothing from them.
I think that that public official has a lot of friends in the wrong places. Well, to him, it would be in the right places, but for those people who are associated with him and they're attorneys or they're in public office or in certain position, I think they're going to be silent now. They're not even going to come out and say anything. I mean, come on, look at the length of time it took for the president, the installed president, to even come out and have an opinion to say that he's going to take the allegation seriously and he hopes it's being investigated. If the head or the person who's supposed to be leading Guyana as the president took such a long time to come out, then I imagine if this public official has any friends in certain places, they're going to be very hesitant to come out and speak out against this wrong, this egregious wrong that was done. And it looks really bad on the public, as we have somebody sitting in the highest form, one of the highest form of leadership in our country, and we're finding out that it's a pedophile. And there's allegations, multiple allegations, leading us to conclude that there's ethical and there's moral violations here, not just legal. And, people are not coming out and speak out about it. And I'm beginning to think maybe he has a lot of friends, Mark, and they don't want to publicly reprimand him.
Absolutely. Well said, Attorney at Law Shellen Washington. We're joined by Attorney at Law Cameron Ramjatan, who's also leader of the Alliance for Change. Mr. Ramjatan, good evening and welcome back to Straight Up. You've been absent for 1 year, 3 months, and 2 days.
That is because of your fault. You weren't calling me. I mean, probably my legal advice to you not proper.
Good evening, but good to have you back here, even under the circumstances. Lots of things are happening in Guyana. I've seen that you've been busy out there protesting and so forth. What's your take before we get to the main stories, though? What's happening in Guyana? All these controversies, sir, from the fire to the wasting of billions of oil monies and so forth on wasteful projects. Your take on those things?
Well, I rather suspect that in this journey of nationhood and the journey of the country's history or present, you're going to have problems. And you're going to have problems largely as a result of the administration not doing the right things. Just like what has happened here with Dharamla, and where the focus is on other heinous activities rather than straightening out the country's problems, you're going to have further problems, Mark. It is always the cause of why we are in a moment of tragedies, as it were. And it is not going to be easy. And when you try to cover up one tragedy, rather than remedying the situation and getting to the root causes of it and all of that, you're going to find yourself in relation to other things, more humongous problems. And that is what it is. It is like rolling down a mountain. And more you pick up all kinds of problems and getting yourself crushed and so on. So that is basically it. It's the nasty governance of the PPP that is causing a lot of problems in this country. And I must add to that the fact that there is a lot of individual irresponsibility. Like we have so many deaths on the roads now, domestic violence, murders, lots of other social problems. But always, in my view, and I speak here like a politician more than a lawyer, it is largely because of the political situation. A lot of the people that are doing a lot of nonsense, corrupt activities and so on, they say that the big boys are doing it with impunity. So why shouldn't I? And this kind of thing then rolls down. It becomes, a very difficult horse to tame, as it were, slippery slope. So we are there now. And I want to put that as the reason why we are having so many tragedies and comedies to a certain extent. Very laughable seeing the vice president, who we know is the president of the country, just laying out with people like, what a fella name? Critic, and talking a load of nonsense there. And he does that all the time. And the poor president does not come to talk on the issues of the day that he, as president, the commander-in-chief, the executive head of the nation, you get Mr. what? Mr. Jagdeo, he dominating the scene. And as I have said on occasion, that constitutional provision that we took for 2 terms and no more, we plucked it out of the American Constitution. And the American Constitution says that once you serve your 2 terms, you're gone, just like Bush and Obama and Clinton and so on. This chap has now bypassed the Constitution and is president by that bypass. And that is what his supporters seem not to understand the point I have been making all along. He's violating the Constitution and the conventions that give the Constitution grist, as it were, to make it more workable. He is now creating what is called this tyranny of himself there, like a dynast. He is there and talking on this matter and talking on oil and talking on aeronautics and talking of deep sea fishing and talking about all these other problems. And he has absolutely no idea what he talks about. And so that is what is going to put us in the train, because the expertise and the experience from genuine players and actors who ought to make pronouncements are not there. But I'm going to stop there.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kemrat Ramjatan. If you're now joining us, we also have all attorneys tonight except me. Sorry about that. And so they're there to let us know their legal take on a lot of things happening. Mr. Dexter Todd, who himself has been absent for about 2 years, 2 months, and 14 hours right here on Bench Up Radio. How are you, sir? Your microphone, please.
Good evening, Mark. Good evening, Mr. Ramjatan. Good evening, Ms. Washington.
Good evening, Dexter.
It's a pleasure to be with you all here tonight.
Good evening.
Yes, and it's a pleasure to have you back again with us here. Before we get back to you, Mr. Dexter Todd, let's go back to Ms. Washington as I get your opinion on what we're hearing and seeing allegations of interference in this alleged rape case concerning Dharamlal. Senior police officers are being accused of interfering with the matter. Your take again on this, Ms. Washington.
I have previously said that we cannot have a police officer who is there or should be there to investigate criminal activities, interfering or tampering with a witness. The rape victim is essentially the star witness of this case, if there's a case, and her allegation should be taken seriously rather than a police officer trying to tell her, accept this amount of money and, allow the case to just go away. That's not his job. And I've previously said, if this is his conduct, if he has done anything of the sort, he needs to be removed from office. He needs to step down. The public needs to put pressure, because the police are there for a reason, to protect the public. And when a victim comes forward with serious allegations of rape, it's not his responsibility as a police officer, or he should not engage in conduct which questions his motive in sitting in the office he's in right now, because that's not what he's there for. He is supposed to protect the victim, not protect the potential perpetrator of a crime. As far as we know, we think that, a crime was committed. Rape, there's allegations, very serious allegations of rape. And until we get to the bottom of those allegations, this police officer had no business trying to interfere with the victim, with her telling her story. He has no business trying to silence her or telling her not to tell her story to the public, or not to report it, or not to try to press charges or prosecute any crime that was perpetrated against her. He should be removed if this turns out to be true. I don't know if it's true, but if there's any merits to that story, it should be properly investigated, and this police officer should be removed from his position.
All right, well said, Ms. Shellon Washington, attorney at law. We will go back momentarily to Mr. Ramjatan, but let us welcome again Mr. Dexter Todd and get your take on what we've been hearing. You're a lawyer, you seem to be getting closer to the case, but I have a specific question about this matter, the case. But before we get to that question, your take on what we've been hearing about the alleged involvement of this senior police officer in this matter.
Well,
you're muted. Oh.
I think all that has been said in terms of the conduct of this police officer has great merit inside. Now, using your SOPs and even following the standing orders, which the police force is obligated to follow, the first thing you have to determine is whether a report was made. If a report was not made, then the police officer, of course, clearly would not have had jurisdiction to even have gone to the house or to even speak with anyone. So I don't know how, you see, this is the concern that we have in Guyana now, is that there seems to be very little adherence to strict policies, to strict protocols, and to strict SOPs. Police seems to be sometimes doing anything they want to do. And so for a police officer who has not been given the mandate to investigate something, to turn up to have someone sign a statement on what premise? The foundation was not even laid. A report was not made. And even so, even if a report was made, then whether the question is whether this police officer would have had any type of jurisdiction in his division to deal with that matter. Was it a transferred report in which he received some instructions to go to the young lady's pool? So a number of things went wrong with this police officer and the manner in which he intervened in the matter. And I believe that I think that it requires a very thorough investigation, and that he ought to be sanctioned, if not criminally, departmentally, because he is completely out of order.
All right, completely out of order. So said also Dexter Todd, attorney at law. Mr. Ramjatan, your take, please, on what we've been hearing about the alleged interference in this rape allegation matter by this officer.
Well, sure. This policeman obviously seems to have been instructed. That's how I put it a couple days ago when we first got us news that the girl had recanted. And the circumstances of the recanting leaves so much to be desired. I don't know what Shalon is talking about in relation to whether he carried money and things like that. That's not. I don't have any evidence of that this time. What clearly he did was somehow to get to the girl and sign up that statement stating that what I had earlier said are untruths. He has to really indicate, because this girl obviously was scared to go to the police station and deal with this matter. And all of a sudden now he's going to call out the superintendent to say, come take a statement and do that. It is frightening what this policeman has done. It is also, in my opinion, the behavior of like a rogue element in the police force that I tried as best as possible whilst being there and got rid of about 6 to 9 of them. And I believe that the circumstances of his taking a statement stating that the girl recanted ought to be investigated by the Police Service Commission. Thus far, we have now appointed a Police Service Commission, and this matter should go straight there, and he should be thoroughly questioned by the commissioners of that Police Service Commission, because they can discipline him and ask him where he got this idea from. Did the girl know his phone number to call him? How he met the girl? What were the circumstances and all of that? And then, as a policeman that should have what is called intuition in relation to now recanting, knowing that he's a big player called Durham Lal, you got to say, hold on, girl, and not just write out that piece of nonsense that was written there. And it is, not a good thing for institutional trust that you're going to have. Okay, the girl now quickly go and write a statement recanting, and you publish it all over the press as if the girl is a liar. Now, what that does at the hands of the police, and especially a senior policeman like his namesake, Kamraj Tui name, that it is now going to make the girl testimony in court or wheresoever in the preliminary inquiry questionable. But you sign up a statement and look, the senior superintendent stated that. That is what it was intended for, either to close the case off and or to now have it used that she retracting and she's inconsistent and contradictory and her evidence should not be the basis for a conviction. It is terrible what happened here. It's horrible. And a sensitive little girl, she's a very bright girl, I understand. You now going to throw this on her? And that is why the mother, when I was called up last night to go and see that indeed, let me check the statement and so on, because she don't know what the police can do and so on. We're going to come to that just now. But all of these things, and then you're denied access to see the girl and so on. It is not doing our institution of the police force good at all. I tried very hard to win back that public trust in that institution. That was the first thing we tried. I remember Silal Prasad, Commissioner, saying that the most distrusted institution in Guyana is the police force, from some report out of Latin America and the Caribbean. So we said we're going to try as best as to do that. But now you got this very stink development. And the first thing this policeman do was to rush in and say, well, girl come, always says untruths. And obviously that is what happened there. As to whether he's instructed, I am absolutely certain that somebody would have instructed Kemraj. And that should be known by the Police Service Commission. That's their function as Police Service Commission.
All right, let's bring back in Ms. Shellen Washington. And for those of you who are now joining us, our guests this evening are Ms. Shellen Washington, Kemraj Ramjatan, and Dexter Todd, all attorneys at law. Ms. Washington, this commander is still on the job. This is a disrespect to the entire police force and by extension, the entire Guyanese population, that he is still on the job. Anywhere else, maybe in a developed world, he would have been out by now. We know that we saw a letter where allegations of a $10 million was handed over in terms of compensation and so forth. I believe that's what you were alluding to earlier. But are you surprised that he is still on the job and not a word, not even a press conference from the acting commissioner of police? Ms. Washington, your microphone, please. Sorry.
I'm not surprised, Mark. Looks like everyone is forgetting the mute button tonight. But I'm not at all surprised, Mark, because I've always said that the Guyana Police Force is not an independent arm. They act on instructions of the PPP. They act on instructions of people in high places or people who have power in terms of money. So it's not a organization, or it's not a a group that we could say, well, they're acting independent and we could trust them and they're reliable. And, whenever they say something as it relates to their investigation, it is the gospel, because we know that the Guyana Police Force is extremely corrupt. And in this instance with the police officer, we know there's allegations that money was offered to the victim. And this is circulating everywhere. There's allegations that money was offered to the victim's mother. So in a situation like this police officer, he should be made to be removed from his office at this time. He should not be sitting there. It is wrong on so many levels when there's such serious allegations that a person is allowed to stay in office and to continue to serve the very people that they're supposed to protect, but they're not protecting. And, I don't know if it's based on what Dexter is saying, if that is true, that he actually went to the home of the victim, then it needs to be investigated. It needs to be taken very, very seriously, and then he should be removed if those allegations are found to be truthful. And Dexter said earlier that it's meritorious. The allegations that we're hearing about him going and getting a statement from the victim, it has merit, and if it does, an investigation should be carried out ASAP. And then if it's found to be truthful, this man needs to be removed. He should be fired. He shouldn't ask to be to retire. He should be fired because he has no right to tamper with the victim. If the victim wants to tell her story, she wants to prosecute somebody who is alleged to have committed a crime against her person, that person needs to be prosecuted. And no police officer should interfere with the victim's right to give her story, to press charges, and have somebody brought before the court and she received justice in her situation. It is wrong on so many levels. And I think what most people are overlooking, and most people are focusing so much on the despicable act of the police, but you got to focus more on where it's coming from. Because if he is instructed Dharam Lal has to be behind this. And this is why I said in the beginning, Dharam Lal should be removed from day one. They should kick him out of the office, because if he sits there, he will continue to use his influence to interfere with any type of investigation against him. And this is what it appears to be, that he used his influence, used his office, and interfere with the investigation. Because who or what give that police officer the right to visit the home of the victim, to go try to solicit a statement from the victim? And I don't know if at that point any report was made. We don't know the facts surrounding his desire to go and visit the victim and try to solicit a statement. I think mostly we need to focus on where this is coming from, because if we just focus on the police officer, he's just a puppet. He was just used. Somebody give him instruction, and we need to figure out who gave this police officer instruction to do that. And the person who passed down the instruction, that person need to be singled out and dealt with. Also, then it comes down to the police officer, and he should be fired for taking instruction that he knows to be wrong. He knows to be corrupt practices. He knows to be unethical, and he should be removed, never allowed to serve in that office again.
Well said, Michelle in Washington. 43 minutes after 9 o'clock, head back to Georgetown, Guyana. Dexter Todd question. A lot of people may not know this, but Mr. Todd is also himself a former police officer of the Guyana Police Force. With these recent revelations coming out and embarrassment from the Guyana Police Force, we just want to say that this is not painting the entire police force or condemnation of the Guyana Police Force in its entirety. We still know that there's some good officers, men and women, in the Guyana Police Force. But Mr. Todd, being an ex-policeman yourself attached to the Immigration Department, how does this look for the Guyana Police Force at this point in time?
Mark, well, being attached to all the departments, because I worked in many of the other departments of the police force.
Thanks. I stand corrected.
I have to support Mr. Ramjatan's statement that, it's really, and I think he made that statement today, that it's really an embarrassment in terms of, from since 2015, all that was done with the police force to rebuild that level of confidence with the society and the police force. And when you see these things happening, it causes a lot of discomfort. It causes a lot of distrust to be built between the communities and the police. Sexual offenses matters have always been specially handled. And this is why the protocol is here, and the conduct of the police officer, it should not be condoned at all, because the way in which these matters are handled, or I believe all stations, they have within them what is called a sexual offenses unit, in which the officers who are responsible for the investigation are specially trained, and they know how to handle the investigation, and they have a certain reporting protocols which must be employed. So it's not any police officer just getting up from their office and decide that they are going to go and to mingle with these type of offenses. So from all levels, it was handled badly from the senior police officer and his involvement. And it can very well be seen as some form of attempting to tamper with the investigation or interfere with it at a very early stage. And those things could have been avoided. Those things could have been very much avoided had they, of course, tried to understand what the protocol is and follow that protocol. Just like how you have Child Protection Agency being involved and so on, that is what they should have done from the beginning. And if there was a certain course of action that would have been comfortable with the victim, well, so be it. I am always one who is I'm very careful with how this matter is discussed, because one has to be very careful with what is out there. These are not matters which are dealt with in the public at all. The types of evidence, what is likely to come forward, what is not. No, those are things that is always dealt with in what we call in camera, very private, unless one gets the consent from the victim to say to the public what certain things are happening. And also, you see, what has happened with the police officer here has really caused an outrage at various levels. Because you see, now what was done is not what you're seeing happening now, because that is not what is being maintained by the victim with the Child Protection Agency. So you could see from the beginning, the approach from the police was very bad. And therefore, it has caused great embarrassment to the force. But as I said, they have a lot of work to do to rebuild confidence with the communities and with society at large. A lot of work to do.
Thank you, Mr. Todd. Let's head back over to Mr. Ramjatan. You did mention, and we read earlier today that there was a bit of controversy surrounding proper legal representation of the family. I'm not sure how much you can shed some light, but you did mention earlier that you spoke with the mother, or you attempted to represent. Can you shed some light on that and clear up some controversy, please? Thank you.
Last night, I got a call from the mother and a woman activist. And the mother indicated that this morning at the Kwamina Street branch of the it is called Guyana GPRA or something like that.
Guyana Responsible Parenthood Association.
Yes.
Yep.
And that I should be there because the girl is going to be signing a statement, and the girl would like independent legal advice, whether I am available. And I indicated to the mom, that Donette Edwards, that yes, I will be there this morning. And I went 9 o'clock. And she came with her two sons. And I spoke to her and I indicated, and she also indicated to the officers there that she would like Mr. Ramjatan to be present when the girl is going to sign the statement, because it was her understanding that her daughter was supposed to sign up the statement that was taken from her by the head of the Child Protection Agency. I forgot the lady's name. I asked whether, this could be done, because I really thought that it could be done. And then, very surprisingly, I was told by the head of that protection agency that there is a protocol that says that private lawyers should not be present. So I indicated, what you lawyers do generally, that they are entitled to legal representation. She said no, that there is a protocol that they will abide by. Now, there was an officer too, Camille Jeffrey, who is in charge of the girl, who also indicated, yes, there is such, and that as far as she knows, I can't be there to read over the statement nor to do anything comforting the girl or anything of the sort. So I was very surprised. Then the mom indicated to them that, look, this boy, because they said she's under the protection of the Child Care and Protection Agency. So then they called in for the young boy, who apparently was present at the scene, not at the scene actually, but in the house. And the mother then said, well, could Mr. Ramjatan sit in whilst this boy is giving his statement?
And the boy which you're referencing is
the brother of the girl.
8-year-old boy. Yeah.
The 8-year-old boy.
Yeah.
And they said no. So then I said, well, this boy is not under protective custody. Isn't he entitled to the lawyer? They said, no, their protocol applies to that boy too. And I was asked not to remove myself, because I must say that the Child Protection Agency girl head was pretty courteous, and she showed me, because I wanted to know the system. And then she carried me into the room that got microphone and a set of equipment and all of that. And then it's connected to another room where the police are going to observe how the statement is being taken, the questions asked, and all of that. So she led me through all of that, and I felt, well, since I can't be there, at least let me learn something. And I saw basically the arrangement and the locus, as it were, in when they're doing their interviews and so on. So I then decided that, look, since I can't be there, I had to leave, and I left. And immediately, well, what they had said is that if I want to know whether this protocol should apply to the boy and the girl, that I should also talk to the director. And the director is a person named October. And they gave me the number for October. And I called October. And there was no response. Then I called Vindhya Prasad, the minister. I happened to know her number and so on. So I called. There was no response. Then I decided, because I still wanted to be there, because, you don't just give up like that. I then called the DPP and sent a message to the DPP that I can't understand how a protocol could deny legal representative of this person that wants to give a statement and things like that. I would not be, interfering with the investigation. I just want the child to be comfortable, and that is the desire of the child's mom, who was there, present, and pleading with them. So I just made a note to her, and I made another note to the Attorney General, who I happen to know very well, as you know, both of them, Shalimar and Anil, and I did not get any response. But my whole question was, what kind of protocol could deny accessibility of a lawyer on behalf of a person that wants the legal services for herself and her child? I haven't gotten any response up to tonight. I intend to take this right up because I want the change of that protocol. It is not that every time somebody is going to want a lawyer to be there when a statement is being given for the prosecution side. Of course, we all know that you have rights. The accused has so many rights. But when the request is made for legal representation for the girl via her mom, and even for the brother via the mom, I thought that it is appropriate that should be done. And that was when I left after that, and I came away. I did speak to the mom afterwards, asking whether everything went well with the statement that the boy gave, and she said yes, everything went well, and I think she signed up and so on, because the mom, as the guardian, well, the one who they allowed there, she said she signed up and so on, and that is as much as you could have done.
All right, Mr. Kemraj, Ramjatan outlining exactly what transpired and protocols as they're claiming. We don't know what protocol is it, but it sounds to me as a layman, I'm not the lawyer here, that the family should have gotten some sort of legal representation, advice from a lawyer being present there. It seems as though that was denied because of some so-called protocol. Before we get back to Dexter Todd, attorney at law, let's get something from Ms. Washington on what you just heard there from Mr. Ramjatan. Your microphone again, please.
From my experience in Guyana, traditionally the victims are never offered an attorney or legal representation. The system in Guyana, traditionally, the police are the ones who's supposed to be on the side of the victim, and they're the ones who take their statements. They're the one who, assist in that aspect. So basically in Guyana, the victim of any crime, you have the DPP on your side, and you have the police on, or supposedly you're supposed to have the DPP and the police on your side. Traditionally, in a democratic society that I live in the United States, when a victim of any violent crime wants to be represented by an independent attorney outside of outside of the prosecutorial system, they're permitted that, they're allowed such. This is based on your constitutional rights in this country. We have certain rights that they're not the same thing that is meted out to a victim of any crime in Guyana. And traditionally, we are aware of this, that Guyana doesn't have a system as such where a victim is entitled to an attorney. There's nothing written in the books, in the law books or the Constitution, that gives the victim the right to say, well, I am entitled to an attorney and I want one. So they basically just operate on whatever abstract protocol that they might have there. And that's what they give to the attorneys when they show up and say, well, I need to represent a client. The client call and the victim wants me to be there. And they could deny that attorney access based on whatever protocol or whatever they use to do that, to determine that. So I'm not at all surprised that the victim in this heinous crime was denied the possibility of having representation from an attorney. And I'm imagining, because there's things that I would like to say about the system in Guyana, but I wouldn't say it. But I would imagine that the victim would have felt more comfortable having her own attorney because of the nature of the crime. And because we already know that there was interference by the police force. So now the victim doesn't feel safe. The victim doesn't feel like the police is on their side, or the DPP or whoever will be on their side. So given the circumstances of this situation, they should have allowed the victim representation through an attorney, just because of the precarious nature of this case. But again, because it's Guyana, and because of the way things are done in that country, and this is why we need to continue to advocate for changes, because for those of us who live in a society like the one I live in, we understand that there's things that needs to be changed in Guyana to allow the country to evolve into a more democratic society. People need to be awakened. They need to understand certain things. And this is why information needs to be provided to the people of Guyana so that they will wake up and recognize that certain things has to be allowed. This victim should have been allowed regardless of the protocol, because of the nature of this crime and because of the police interference with tampering the victim's testimony at an early stage before anything was even done.
All right, well said, Michelle in Washington. Let's head back to Attorney Todd. Mr. Todd, I've read reports today that you were denied access to grant some sort of legal advisor just to be there to ensure that your client is properly guided. Can you walk us through what transpired today, sir, please?
Thank you, Mark. Now, we were contacted, and I, in person, I spoke with the both parents of the victim, and then I was allowed as well. So I did have a conversation as well with the victim, and I also spoke with persons who are directly involved in the. And this is not the police. This is other investigators who are assisting with this investigation, and only to the extent to confirm that the victim was requiring or requesting that an attorney be present. And the attorney that she asked to be present was an attorney of her choice. Mark, listen, I don't know what protocols they are talking about. Things do not get past me if there is no proper rooting in law. Guyana and the Child Protection Agency is subjected. They must be subjected to the Protection of Child's Act. I think is 2009. My first question that I have asked my juniors to have because nobody could have given me straight answers. I mean, I am overseas, but no one could have given me straight answers. I firstly asked, why is the child in protective custody? Why? That act lays out, section 6 of part 3 lays out when a child can be in protective custody. When? I don't find that from reading from A right up, I don't find that this situation and what I am seeing here fits into any one of them. You have a situation in which both parents are supportive of the child reporting the matter. It is not a situation in which the alleged crime occurred in her home, or that in her home circle there is someone who has been violating her, who has been affecting her, whether physically, emotionally, and so forth. So to go to this extent where you are barring counsel from having an opportunity to intervene, I find it very worrying. Because the principal legislation that we must act on, our supreme law, that constitutionally this girl has a right to legal counsel. She has requested legal counsel. Now, the only 3 acts, legislations that they can fall back on would be the Sexual Offences Act of 2010, would be the Protection of Children's Act 2009, and it would be the Child Care and Protection Agency Act of 2009. Those are the only 3 legislations that they can look to see that they can pull out some form of regulation from. So this regulation has to be a very strange one. This protocol has to be a very strange one, because this is a situation, and I want to say, I mean, the act is very, when one reads the Protection of Children Act, it is very clear, and it's very, very informative as to who, it can tell any layman as to who really this act wants to protect. It is always in the best interest of the child. This is here now, the child is requesting that I want to be more comfortable. And that comfort level that I want to have is to have a particular lawyer or particular lawyers present. Why would you deny that? Why would you deny that? It does not make any sense at all. That, to my mind, is making the child or putting the child in a position in which the environment becomes more uncomfortable for her. And so it does not make sense at all, this protocol that they're talking about. I mean, I made a call last night, and I believe I spoke with one at the Child Protection Agency. And then we communicated again today. And this, you know why none of the persons can say directly what the protocol is? It's because they're plucking it out of the air. They're plucking it out of the air, and somebody is misleading them as to what they ought to do in relation to these circumstances. Because the circumstances as that is presenting now, that was presented to them now, clearly could not require them to operate in that way, in which they are refusing to have the victim speak with an attorney. Clearly could not. This is not a situation where the attorney is going to inform the girl what to say or to tamper in any way with the investigation. That's right. The mere presence of counsel is to bring that level of assurance and comfort for her to operate. So I don't know what protocol. And I can tell you, as I said, when one reads those pieces of legislation, you would recognize that there is absolutely no regulation or protocol that can be built out of that will deny counsel an opportunity to speak with the victim. None at all. Because this is not a case in which the child is so traumatized that she doesn't want to speak, and so therefore, really and truly, it's a situation where you should really find a counselor to speak with her. No, no, no. This is an intelligent young woman who is saying, listen, I want to speak with counsel because there are some questions that I'm sure she has that she wants some form of assurances to or guidance on what the law obtains in relation to those. So I am not going to buy that, as I called it today, hogwash. I'm not going to buy that hogwash about protocols and that the state is interest of the child and the state is going to represent the child. Who is barring the state from representing the child? Nobody is barring the state from representing the child. And so it doesn't follow at all. It doesn't follow at all. Because in any event, the attorney here, and I think sometimes you've got to go very clear so that people can understand. The attorney's presence here is not to take over and to prosecute the matter, because none of us have a fiat to prosecute the matter. The state is still responsible for presenting their case unless that is the posture and the application made to the Director of Public Prosecution. An attorney's present, and this has been the custom for many years. This has been the provisions of the law all the time, that the attorney can appear and watch the interests of a person. We do that all the time. What makes it quite different in these circumstances that you're not able to watch the interest and to advise, give independent advice to a client? So I find that whoever is responsible for this protocol that has no bearings in law, I will advise them quickly to withdraw that comment. There is absolutely no protocol that they can point to that in which they can have proper foundation in law to stand on. And therefore they ought to immediately allow access to the victim.
All right, Mr. Are you done, sir? Because you guys are the lawyers. I want to give you guys time without just butting in. And sometimes
I want to make another point.
Yeah.
Since you're giving the lawyers the time, look, I remember doing the tie on Thomas case. Remember that? Burning of the genitalia of that little Amerindian boy.
Yeah.
And, initially, and this was police now, not the Child Protection Agency, they got the boy in the lockups, burnt badly and all of that. And the police just didn't want lawyers to go check the child. You had to go and make it big public and so on. Then they do that. And then the policeman that had done that very heinous act on the boy, remember we had said, and we managed at a civil prosecution to get damages and all of that.
The whole crew. I know of that case.
They gone and promote the same policeman, that same Guyana police force. You remember? They gave him promotion after several years. A fella like that would have conducted that and ought to have suffered criminal charges. Never got any criminal charges on him. And that is why I just
the Tion Thomas situation is a criminal matter of which he was accused of a murder, a crime of accused of committing murder. And for them to have denied him access to a lawyer is indeed unconstitutional. He deserved that. So
that apart from that, but he was now burned. He was severely burnt, and they were trying to hide it.
Yeah,
and the hospital was just across the road. Remember the Vrida police station?
Yeah.
So there is this tendency that this police force wants to hide the truth, especially when it comes to giving them a bad name. And I rather suspect that is probably what they're using all kind of protocol now. And it's a different institution, not necessarily the police force, but a Child Protection Agency. And they ought to, as is being mentioned by Dexter there, know that the best interest of the child matters most, as against this course on the criminal behavior of the minister. you know, and then it is not nice. They are not going to get any value as to confidence, as to legitimacy, as to, trust. Nothing. All can be collapsed to zero by this one incident again. And you work hard to build the trust, and then all of it collapses to zero. And that is the kind of thing that does the police very big harm. And the Tyan Thomas case went international all over the world. This one might very well go international too, and I hope it does.
You're speaking of the subject matter here is protocol. The police never really adhered to that when they allegedly had a commander out there in the area jurisdiction where this crime alleged to have or reported. They didn't consider protocol then when they attempted to interfere in the matter, but they're now applying protocol, this so-called protocol. I don't know, Miss Washington, your take on this protocol?
I agree to disagree with some of what I heard, because I don't think, based on my knowledge of the Constitution in Guyana, the only person I know that it gives a right to representation from an attorney is an accused person, not a victim. The only thing I see in this case, and I think both sides is incorrect, because I don't think any protocol should prevent the child from having the right to an attorney. But I know that there's no law that gives the child the right to an attorney. But what I think in this particular case, in the interest of justice, that victim should have been allowed access to an attorney. I think this particular case is peculiar because the Child Protective Service, what they usually do when they intervene, as far as I know, is to protect the child. And if the child service decide that they're going to intervene in any particular case, they have to be looking at all angles. And if they believe that there's something that could influence the parent and cause the parent to influence the child, or any sort of influence to prevent the victim from being able to openly tell their story, because we had the commissioner, she was here, Commissioner Cole was here, and she was speaking on this. So I think the Child Protective Service, they're supposed to actually step in and protect the interests of the child. And they're supposed to be allowed independent interviewing of the child. But again, I said in this particular case, I think it's unique. The facts are unique, but I wouldn't pass a full judgment to say, because there's no side, there's no law that give either the Child Protective Service to exclude an attorney from the child, or there's no law to give the attorney the exclusive right to be able to gain access to that child. So I think in this particular case, it's peculiar. And in this case, I speak on only, I'm not speaking about all cases, because as I said, there's no law that guarantees that victim the right to an attorney. And likewise, there's no law that tells anyone that the victim should not be given an attorney. And whatever their policies are, if it doesn't align with the law, then the policies need to be changed. Somebody needs to advocate for changes. But until such happens, in this particular case, we could limit this discussion to and said, well, this victim should be entitled to an attorney in the interest of justice, because we know there's several factors playing out here. We know that there's Dharam Lal with his influence on the one hand. We know that there's a Ministry of Education with Priya Manichan putting her statement claiming that she attempted to contact the child and the child's family. We know that there's several outside factors trying to influence the outcome of this case and to influence the victim and the victim's family. So I think in this particular case, the victim should have been given access to an attorney. She's entitled to it only because of the peculiar nature of this particular case. But we cannot argue against anything that there's absolutely no law to support one way or the other. You understand? The laws again is kind of skewed, not in favor of any particular person. Whoever drafted it They need to revisit some of these laws, and they need to be rewritten, because frankly, a lot of the laws in Guyana are not fairly written, and some of them are ambiguous, quite frankly, because I have something to compare it. And when I compare often the laws that I know as it's written in Guyana versus the law in the jurisdiction I now practice in, there's a lot of ambiguity, and it needs to be corrected. But there's no side people in Guyana need to understand that is correct in this particular case. And the case is very, very peculiar. So we need to look at the interest of justice in this situation. And so, well, in this particular case, the victim should have been given an attorney. If she feels comfortable with one, maybe she should have been given the right to have one in this particular case.
Well said. Can't disagree with that. If the victim feels comfortable with a lawyer, then that victim should have been given that opportunity because of the circumstances, indeed. But as we look at the wrap-up time, let's go over to Mr. Todd. Lots and lots of back and forth debate on this matter, and majority of the people seem to be suggesting, and maybe rightfully so, that there was interference in this matter from the get-go, and they feel that evidence may have been covered up, and they're not too optimistic of justice being had in this case. Do you share a different view as it pertains to justice in this matter?
Listen, I know what the concerns are, but I don't have any evidence to substantiate that at all. And as I said, you have to be very careful of how you put things out there, and how you try to analyze the case even before it gets to a court. Remember, this case is going to be tried before, if the suspect is, or the accused person is committed, he is going to face trial before a judge and jury. You're pulling people from the communities, from the society, from the general public, to form part of your jury pool. So you don't want to. I don't share that view, because there's nothing there to substantiate clearly that there has been covering up in the matter. You have to wait until the matter gets to the court, and you have to see what the police investigation has been, what is given, and you have to allow it to be unveiled in the court. So I would want to say clearly that I still have confidence in our judicial system. I still have confidence in the ability of our courts to see through certain things. And I can tell you, the prosecution, if they are not presenting certain things, I've known many courts who have called upon them to get it right, to sort yourself out. So I would say clearly, let us wait until the investigation has been completed. I know that there are some concerns which were raised by a number of actions from either the police or maybe the person who is of interest in the matter. Those are concerns which I believe which are reasonable. But let's see, because we don't know if those things are going to be materialized in actually what is presented before the court. So don't let's pass judgment to say that it's going to be tampered with, and that justice will be lost. I don't believe so. I believe that we have to be very focused, and we have to be very confident that and I think the people who are involved in this matter are very competent, very competent. And as Mr. Ramjatan rightly said, from the investigation part of the Child Protection Agency, there's nothing yet that we can see has gone wrong in terms of the actual investigation and the statements and all of that. It seems to be very fair and transparent. The only issue is this protocol in relation to access to the victim, which we find that it's quite not one that should have been carried out in the first place by the Child Protection Agency. But as it pertains to the investigation itself, we don't have anything of substance to hold on to see that it is being compromised.
All right, Mr. Todd, Attorney at Law Todd, we'll get back to him shortly for his closing remarks. But a lot of people have that sort of, pessimistic view about the investigations. And I agree with you, Mr. Todd, that you guys are closer to the investigation. You get to read things from both sides, I believe. And so you share a different view. But from the inception, we saw an attempt to cover up. Going back to what that commander did or allegedly did, it was a blatant attempt to cover up the matter, as we all saw right in front of our eyes. Mr. Ramjatan, I ask you now a political question as it pertains to what has happened to Nigel Dharamlal, the guy who is accused of raping that 16-year-old girl. Lincoln Lewis, veteran trade unionist, is saying misguided by Irfan Ali administrative leave not applicable to Minister Dharamlal. He must be fired. Your take, Mr. Ramjatan.
Absolutely. I'm of that view. And in a matter in which clearly there was a heinous act committed on that young girl in the house of Mr. Dharamlal, little brother being present, and then do-over of the room in which it happened, allegations also that are seemingly supportive with some meritorious statements that money passed. Who you think passed the money? On whose behalf? Dharamlal. With all of these, and then getting a police superintendent to go duck. This was a lovely case for me to prosecute. You know, I was at the DPP's chambers for some years.
Oh, of course, I remember.
And this would have been a lovely one. And then painting up the room and all of that.
One second.
Why you paint the hall? Why you paint the trouble is that there is conduct here.
Can I stop
that is so bad that he must go. He's not fit to be a member of parliament. He's not fit to be a member of the cabinet. And quite frankly, there is another place that he should go immediately. I mean, I am very, very tough on this fella, because this is a fella that used to pronounce as if he's Mr. Archangel in the parliament. And he slanders me all the bloody time in the parliament. It's just because parliament has what is called absolute privilege, telling me that I got 5 million in some Capital One account and big house in New York and that kind of thing. And he, at the bottom house meetings and so on, he tells you all of it. But I don't want to be biased in relation to that politically.
Fair enough.
I am saying his conduct here.
I have a quick question for you. You did, and sorry for the interruption.
Yeah.
You did mention that there was a changing up of the room and the painting and so forth. Can you elaborate a little more on that for our audience?
Well, I was told that this report that came out of the Dennis Chabrol's meeting, there indeed, the mom indicated to me that, you know, I don't want to get into the statement and so on, but it is true that this room was now emptied. The room that was told by the girl there, pointing out this is the room where it happened, and there was a bed there, there's a wardrobe there. It is not there anymore. And the mom told me that she smelt the fresh paint. This fella painted himself into a corner, quite frankly. That is what he has done, you know, because he didn't paint up no other part of the house. He painted this room. Look, if he felt that he's hiding and he's going to get off because the girl go and point out a room that then had a bed, he has painted himself more into a corner, because that could only have been done by him. That is why initially the matter ought to be investigated to the extent that he couldn't interfere. And I am blown to bits when I heard from the mom that indeed that is what happened there. But rather than thinking that it might be a disaster for the virtual complainant, I think it will be disastrous for that accused Dharamlal. Look what he did. And so I hope that the police are going to say that, yes, we smelt the paint and it smelled fresh. All of that is going to be very serious bits and pieces of circumstantial evidence when put together, is very, very much why he must be regarded by the president at the political level. I'm not talking about the crime now. You got a presumption of innocence in relation to the criminal justice system. But when it comes to the politics of it, there is something called ministerial individual responsibility, the convention of ministerial responsibility. And in that convention, when there is personal fault or misconduct of a grievous, egregious manner as this, that fellow should be kicked out of the place immediately. You don't need now to go as a president to say, I can wait till he get convicted. That will be 3-4 years down the line. He should not be in any position to be getting any amount of money, because administrative leave means you're going to get the full salary. Where you putting a man like that for full salary? Taxpayers don't want that fella to be paid any money. And the circumstances of his personal misconduct and the circumstances that is not fit for constitutional office, unless, of course, Irfan Ali will say, well, I regard him still as fit. It is amazing what will be the outcome there. But it is my view, like Lewis's view, that he should be fired forthwith. I've said that 2 nights ago. He should be gone and not sucking up $1.5 million as a senior minister from the coffers of this country. He shouldn't be. He should be let go. And that, if the PPP government, prime minister, president, and so on, don't do that and give him administrative monies, leave monies, which is a full salary and a whole lot of benefits and all of that, it will be giving this fella, you know, he would be committing what is called in civil law unjust enrichment. He's not entitled to it. And I believe, yes, he should be fired right away. There is sufficient evidence of misconduct here. Carrying the girl to your house and inviting the girl to your... Yeah, that alone. What are you doing there? Boris what the man name? Boris Johnson the other day gone and party up somewhere inside the prime minister's office. He gone. Any least mistake you made with personal, especially when it is a personal misconduct like that. And them is the same fellas in the opposition that are saying Ramjatan should get out from the place and resign and all kind of thing. When some criminals burned down the Georgetown prison, it wasn't my personal fault. These were some very, very bad criminals and so on. But no, this is terrible what we are seeing in Guyana. It is going to make the PPP now at an inflection point as to whether they will want to tame this ugly tiger, this very ferocious animal, in the sense of political developments of this nature being allowed to perpetuate themselves even greater. So it is important that you fire. A good president would fire, go long away, and don't pay him any administrative monies, because that is what administrative leave means. You go out there temporarily, but you'll be paid full salary. What full salary he deserves?
That's a question, and a lot of people, most Guyanese, are on your side and what Mr. Lewis said and what Mr. Roysdale Ford as well, senior counsel, said. Ms. Washington, as we prepare to close off, I have another question for you as it pertains to what we heard from Mr. Ramjatan in the allegations of tampering with the evidence, changing of the room, repainting it, removing furniture, and so forth. The police rushed to grant Nigel Darmlal bail in the sum of $1 million Guyana dollars, which is about 5,000 US dollars, in a matter of just a couple of hours. They released him, and he went and tampered with the evidence. Your take on that, Ms. Washington?
I've said from the inception on this show that entire situation there doesn't seem right, that he would be given bail so quickly without being charged. As we all know, the purpose of bail is to secure an accused attendance to a trial. And there's no trial because there's no charges laid as yet. So I'm not sure why he was given bail, but I could guess why, and the public can also assume why. He was allowed to leave the jail on bail, to be allowed to go tamper with evidence, to go allowed to change his room, to go allowed to fix things, so that when the police finally visit the crime scene, things are no longer the way it should have or it should be. The entire system and the way this entire case is being handled, I really do not, and I'm not ashamed or afraid to say this to the public and to the Guyanese people, because we know what we're dealing with. I don't have confidence in the system in Guyana. I don't have confidence in Shalimar Haq. I don't have confidence in the police force. And Mark did say tonight that there are some good police officers, but are the good ones sufficient to outweigh the bad ones? Are the good ones that we have in high enough authority to be able to influence the bad ones? I do not know, and I do not feel confident. But what I do feel like in this case is that it's being set up for a failure. Everything that is being aligned is for it. To me, it gives me the appearance that we're being set up for a failure in this case. And we've already seen who he went to for representation. We've already seen we've been betrayed by somebody who's supposed to be on the APNU side. So in essence, I don't feel very confident that we're headed in the right direction with this case. And I've already said it, there's a different standard for criminal law. We know that the standard is a really heavy one to reach. It's beyond reasonable doubt. So if an accused person could create doubts in a situation, then, it would be very, very hard or impossible to secure a conviction. And so the heavy burden on the prosecutor in this case is to prove this case beyond reasonable doubt. And at this point, based on all the allegations I'm hearing, I do not know that we can rise to the level to secure conviction against Darren Lal beyond reasonable doubt. And if that standard cannot be met, I still know that there's another standard, because he is a public official, because he is he's a government official. There's another standard. There's moral. There's a moral obligation. There's ethical obligations here. And because there's overwhelming amount of allegations against him, not just from this one victim, because I've said it before, if this is coming out, chances are Dara Malal is a perpetual pedophile. Chances are he has done this before. Chances are there are other young women underage who can come forward or who may be able to come forward with similar allegations. So I'm thinking the ethical and the moral obligations are sufficient for Dharam Lal to be fired, and he should be made to step out of office. And, I've said it before, there should not be any leave, no administrative leave. So I agree with that sentiment coming from Ramjan. He should be fired ASAP, so that he wouldn't even have the possibility of continuing to influence anything as it relates to this case. He should be made a regular person in the public. They should strip him of his political assignment, strip him completely, get him out of office. And if this government, if PPP have any ethical values, any moral scruples, they will stand up for what is right and say, well, at this point, we need to fire you. You need to step down, because this doesn't look good on the government of Guyana. This is very disgraceful, and the world is watching. This is all over social media. The Americans are watching at you guys. Everyone is paying attention to what is happening in Guyana. It seems to be one lawless incident after the next. And where is the law? Where is the justice? Where is the system that would stand up for what is correct and protect people in Guyana? We don't know, because if the very government cannot come out and say when something is moral and ethically violent and is ethically wrong, is grossly immoral, then I don't know where we stand as a nation in Guyana. But I totally agree. Dharam Lal should be fired.
Well said, Miss Washington. Dharam Lal should be fired. We're hearing reports that his U.S. visa has again been revoked. That's just what we're hearing, that last week, latter part of last week, his U.S. visa was actually revoked again. So let's get to Mr. Todd, Attorney at Law Todd, for his closing remarks. And take as much time as you want in any area that we haven't covered that you believe that the public should know what they can't possibly know. Go ahead, sir.
Well, well, Mark, I just want to give my own assessment. You know, sometimes I am seen as the strange attorney. I'm seen as one who always um, goes against the odds. And that is why I do not see the only thing that I recognize is that the accused person here is a member of parliament and is a minister of government. But to my mind, I see him as no way different than any ordinary Guyanese. I see him as having no special privilege in this regard. I know what the concerns are in terms of being able to influence. As I said, a man is innocent until proven guilty. And if we are going to improve and build the criminal justice system, we have to be able to not cast convictions on persons without the evidence being unveiled in a court of law. Therefore, having said that, all I can call on persons to do, those who are involved in the investigation in this matter, is to be true to their oath, do the right thing. Because you see, the sexual offenses, while we might want to think that a number of things have occurred, the nature of our Sexual Offenses Act doesn't require corroborative evidence, doesn't require any supportive evidence at all. A conviction can be based alone on the VC's, the complainant's statement, the victim's statement alone. All right? So it doesn't matter that they jump high or low, because if we find when the documents have been disclosed to us, when they're disclosed to us, and you look at it and you recognize that clearly there has been some form of tampering here, then our criminal law makes provision for us to take steps to bring and to call those who are culpable to justice. So my thing is not to jump ahead, not to get loose focus, but to be very focused in this matter and recognize that the more more persons in the public look at what potentially is the evidence in this matter and begin to discuss it and put it out there, nothing stops the accused person from filing in the High Court an action to stop the criminal proceedings because of the amount of pre-trial publicity and the fact that he is scared that there is not likely that he's going to have a fair trial at all. So we must not allow that to happen. We must be very guarded, we must be very watchful, and we must be very tactful in how we handle this matter. Do not let us discuss the potential errors that are being made. There are forums in which we can do it, and keep it confined in the law. Because if you really want to be successful at what you set out to do, then you have to cover your tracks at all ends. So I want to close by saying that I know what is in the public. I, of course, cannot comment on those things. They're not before me in terms of a statement. It's not before the court. And therefore, I will say the police listening to the program, hearing your voice, hearing the calls from the community, they ought to be very careful in how they treat this matter, because the arm of the law is wide and long enough to pull in the net all persons who try to interfere and who try to hamper justice in this matter. And therefore, and justice means Justice doesn't have one face. Justice always has to be balanced. Balance. Justice would mean that the evidence must go before a court of law that is competent, and that a court must be allowed to rule and determine what is evidence and not. Don't let us determine what is evidence. All that you're hearing happening, policemen take statement and policemen, that's not evidence. That is not evidence. They are attempting, whatever they are attempting to do, it's not evidence, because everything will be tested by a competent court. And I believe we have enough from our records of how the court has handled matters. We have enough to say that there is confidence in our judicial system. And that once things come before the court, if it's not done the right way, then it's, I mean, how do we improve our judicial system? I have done a number of sexual offensive matters. I don't believe I have ever lost a sexual offense matter that I have done. But clearly you see that there's always been lacking when it comes to the police investigation. And this has always been my call, for the police to do more, for the police to not fail to say, listen, I do not have the competence in this particular area, therefore let us look outside. And the thing that we are not employing at all, we are not employing the use of proper forensic evidence. The science does not lie, and we have to start to get very familiar with it. Because while people are talking things and saying all sorts of things, the science can reveal things that can be a lot more accurate than what persons are saying. And therefore, we must not be afraid to embrace that science. And this has always been a call. This is how we improve our system. This is how we make our society safer. When we stop relying on she say and he say, no, let us use the science. It's available. It's available to us. And so this investigation, that's only this particular matter. There are hundreds of matters that has gone before the court that has not been investigated properly. Not been investigated properly. And so all these calls is for them to say, listen, this is a sensitive matter. This is a matter in which you have an opportunity to do right. Do a proper investigation and allow the evidence to be unveiled in a court of law, and allow the court to make a determination after the evidence has been presented, of course. So that's all I want to say, Mark. Clearly, I hold a different view on this matter. I am not one to be drafted into the hype and into getting losing focus. I'm not one to lose focus at all. This is a matter in which you have to be very watchful what is happening, and while you're of what is, you have to be very, very careful in not allowing the other side to be given all the ammunition. That's all I want to say.
And thank you so much. We don't want anybody, any lawyer, protecting the interest or looking into the interest of the victim to lose any focus. But let us keep in mind that in the beginning, the police force attempted to cover up this matter, and they interfered. That's the evidence that is out there in John Public and Jane Public. It is out there. But I have one quick question before we go to Mr. Ramjatan's closing remarks, and this is for you. You did say that the debate of this matter in public domain can lead to the possible withdrawal of the case by the DPP. Is there any law that allows for that to happen on that ground?
Not from the DPP. And I am just saying, listen, these types of matters, the law has not been, and I mean, there's a line of case laws, which clearly, even from the legislation, that these are not things that ought to be discussed.
But not to cut you, that is why it's called sub judice. It is not for lawyers to discuss it publicly, but there's nothing in law that prohibits any one of the people who are commenting here from having an opinion shared. But a lawyer representing the case cannot do that.
Don't miss my point, Mark. It is not an issue of commenting. It is an issue of trying to give an opinion which can influence person to say, listen, because the question you ask is whether from all that is in the public domain, whether we feel that justice in an essence would have been lost. And I'm saying no. I am saying we do not have the evidence. The evidence has not been presented before the court. So I'm saying I understand what the concerns are. I share those concerns. Those are valid concerns, but I'm still saying the investigation, this file, which is, and it's not the police. It's not the police. I without any evidence, I would be very callous to be saying that the persons from child protection, and there's an external body outside of the child protection who has taken the statements and so on. I'll be very callous to see that they have not been very honest and thorough in their investigations, and therefore the hope is lost. I'm saying the confidence is still there. Let us see if, when we look at it, we find that there has been some form of tampering. Then I'm saying that our criminal justice and our laws are wide enough to bring those persons in who are culpable, and charges can be instituted against them. But let us wait.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Todd. Always from your busy schedule. I know you said you're out of the jurisdiction, but we thank you so much for your time spent with us this evening. I'm sure you'll stick around for a few more minutes as you listen to the closing remarks coming from Mr. Kemraj Ramjatan, who's leader of the Alliance for Change. He's also former Minister of Home Affairs. Two things I want to, before your closing remarks. One is that we're now hearing that Jagdeo is coming out to say that Dharamlal should face the full blunt of the law once the evidence presented. He finally has a word on that. And he loves to talk about democracy in other political party, but this is a man who was not in the PPP, held their Congress since 2016. I want you to touch on those two things and then straight into your, I hope, your brief closing remarks. Mr. Ramjatan.
Well, it is the tsunami of public opinion, and we have very explicitly stated in the Constitution freedom of expression and opinion, that has caused at least the police, and in my opinion, the C Child Protection Agency, these state agencies, to sometimes recant, because I believe that they wanted to do mischief here. And you see, when that Kaichor News thing came out and was emblazoned big, and then a number of people start protesting and so on, then they start catching themselves. Otherwise, you would have got this thing recanted, case closed, that matter done. It is that tsunami of public opinion. Opinion sometimes redirect from the wrong to the right institutions in any democracy. And we forever have to be alert to our rights and the wrongs of the state and make it public. I am glad that the people have been saying all the things that they have been saying thus far, and a lot more must be said. In relation to the Jagdeo matter, Jagdeo even now catch himself that even his own supporters saying, how you going to hold that fella in parliament and in cabinet? And that is why he's talking about the full brunt of the law. Well, he didn't mention it a couple days ago. And that is why everybody should be angry at what transpired here. It is only when now you're trying to go to the Child Protection Agency to talk to them and this and that and whatever might have been straightening out the situation, but we can't do that. The international people going to get in this bit. The lawyers, Guyana Association of Women Lawyers, the Bar Association has straightened them out. And if we don't feel that that has an impact, well, I would like to make it quite clear here that it does have an impact. And in relation to He trying to play another archangel, just like Dharamlal. Look what he has done to our constitution, as I have just mentioned here in the program earlier. He has bypassed the constitutional provisions to be the president without being the president. Now he's going to talk and cuss up people like the media and Nazima Ragobir and all of them, that your press media association elections is not proper. And that Jagabat has not had elections from 2016, when under the constitution of the PPP, remember, that is where I came from, every 3 years you got to hold a Congress. So 2 Congresses he has not held, 2019 and 2022. And this is the fella now that is criticizing everybody else's constitution. He said the Human Rights Association never had elections, Press Association, this, that. This chapping got no shame, you know. And he's not supposed to be there. He's supposed to be like an Obama, go and write a book. He said he's going to write a book. What book he writing? He writing all the scripts in this PPP government now. Every single bloody thing, from aeronautics to how zebra is born. This is what we got for a political leader called Jagdeo. And he and Critic can sit down and talk the nonsense and spread it all over the place, because apart from economics, he seems to have done a major in propaganda at Patrice Lumumba University. You know? And he is not being cribbed and confined by the executive that they got in the PPP there anymore. He knocked off everybody that used to question him. Myself first. He expelled me from the party. Activities detrimental to the party. Now, that's a Stalinist offense. He knocked off Moses Nagamutu. He knocked off who else? Ralph Ramkaran. Literally shelving them. All the people that question him. So he's now there as a dynast. You can't question him anything. And then he comes and tell you, all right, well, we are not going to have the elections in 2019. We are not. And he wickedly put the fact that it is COVID. But the COVID really never affected Guyana right up to, I think, March in 2020. You know, it had started around, but 2019 is when he was supposed to hold it. 2022 come, it gone. And now he's saying he's going to hold it next year. That general secretary of the party that you call Jagdeo is obviously trying to extend his life beyond the term limits and all of that. And he has done that for 6 years. And I don't like what I see. But I have to tell the public here that they, inside of the PPP too, because he's getting lots of problems there, the PPP has to let him also get straight, just like how we straightened out what might have gone wrong here in this investigation of this girl. The PPP people got to ensure that they do the right thing inside of that political party. You got to let it go and take a walk, go and pasture somewhere. It's about time, and not being in all these spheres of activities. That is what I want to be. I'm very critical of him, but he seems that, you know, people believe in him so much, got a lot of supporters and so on, but he's abusing the process. He's abusing power.
All right, well said. If you can just give me a quick other minute, please, Miss Washington, for your closing remarks, and we'll wrap things up. Mr. Ramjatan, since it's political questions, I'll refrain from asking Mr. Todd or others. The COI for the Madhya dorm fire that killed 20 young people. Irfan Ali promised to have a COI set up, a commission of inquiry. It's been weeks now, nothing of the sort. Your take, please, on that. Nothing.
We already
Mr. Ramjatan, please. Sorry, that question.
Oh, you're asking me?
Yes,
well, again, I remember I made the opening remarks, the tragedies of this administration's governance and accountability sphere. It is zero. Big fire, 20 Amerindian girls die. And still you do not have anything yet, although you promised the nation that you're going to constitute what is called a commission of inquiry. Why are you waiting so long? There is deliberation. There is Look, in the PPP that I know, I come from the belly of the beast. There is method in this madness. They want to delay the thing, let it come off the minds of the people. They know their propaganda work because many of them studied in them Stalinist country, Moscow and Czechoslovakia and Prague and I don't know where and where. And so they don't understand liberal democratic politics. They understand what is it called? Centralism. Democratic centralism, they call it. But what the leader said, that is what you follow. And the leader, obviously, Jagdeo, must have told poor Infan, hey, don't constitute nothing now. You made a promise? Well, hold on. And that is what has happened here. Because Jagdeo, in his own opinion, probably feel that the inquiry is going to bring out so much nastiness. But we, liberal Democrats, want the nastiness to be brought out because in the democracy, you can have a remedial action taken or actions taken so that you can solve the problem. You don't hide it. And that is what distinguishes this leadership style of Jagdeo as against that with David Granger and so on. You know, like holding 2 local government elections, trying to get at the basic root problems of matters and so on. Not that his administration was perfect, but this is inherently a bad thing about a PPP with a Jagdeo there. And that is terrible for a country's democracy because you'll have this king, as it's called, or dynast, who's going to block every little role that can improve our institutions, that can improve the governance, and that can also enhance accountability. And it's basically that, what they're trying to deny the public or delay it. If it is not a denial, it's a delay. 1 month already. You can't do a commission of inquiry. It's terms of reference you need and some people that you appoint.
Thank you, Mr. Ramjatan. Appreciate your time. The final word there, closing remarks from Attorney at Law Shellen Washington. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, Mark. And once again, I want to thank all the listeners here tonight. Thank you guys for sharing the live, sharing the link. And in having your friends, your family, whoever, to know that this is what is happening and to get the information that Mark always shares online and the panel that he always bring here. But I want to advise you guys, the public, that we are not fools and we are watchful. And we want to see a democracy in Guyana. We want Guyana to bloom into a democratic society. That's what we want to see. And that's what this is all about. Every time we expose hypocrisy, we expose lies, we expose corruptions, it's because we want Guyana to bloom into a true democracy. We want truth to prevail. We want the corruption to end. We want the PPP to stop the corrupt and fraudulent practices. And because of this situation with Dharam Lal is something that we have to keep a watchful eyes on. And we got to realize this is not just about a criminal conduct of a public official. Dharam Lal is not a regular citizen. He's holding a public office. And you people, all Guyanese need to recognize that. And so we don't hold him to no one standard. We hold him to a higher ethical standard that he is answerable to the Guyanese people too. We don't hold him at the same standard as a regular pedestrian, as a regular Guyanese who just hold a regular job. But this guy is sitting as a pedophile in a public office. And we need to pass judgment, because unless we pass judgment, our society is gonna be doomed. It's gonna be peril for doom. And if we lack the ability to step up and to speak up, this is what happens. Because justice, although justice can come, justice sometimes is slow. Sometimes it comes on the back of a turtle, and it takes a long time to get justice in the law, in the legal system. But you know what? This guy is holding a public office. So we want moral justice. We want ethical justice. We want the people that sit in public office must be held to this higher level, this higher standard. And whenever we hear allegations about them being engaged in corrupt moral practices, we must be able, as the people of Guyana, to speak up. And in the criminal system, We're not concerned because we already know that if the evidence is not presented properly, and we're already seeing that there's allegations of corruption, there's allegations to tamper, there's allegations to do what is wrong. So we know that there's a possibility that the criminal aspect of it is not going to go the way we're hoping. We've heard that Dexter Todd told the public he has never lost one of these rape cases, and he's on the defense side. So if he's on the defense side and he's telling the public he has never lost one of those cases, what sort of hope should the Guyanese people have that this case with Dharam Lal is going to be any different when he have Nigel Hughes to the rescue representing the accused person? So we got to be careful, and we must remain vigilant to protect our society. Our duty as people of Guyana is to protect our country, protect our name. So when the world is looking at us, they must see a people who stands for justice, a people who stands for integrity. And as much as you guys speak, we don't have to worry about anything regarding the criminal trial, because if Dharam Lal attorney wants, he could sequester the juror so that the juror would not be corrupt by anything they're hearing from the public. So this doesn't affect the criminal trial one way or the other. But we as the people of Guyana must remain vigilant, must remain watchful, and hold these people to a higher standard. It's not just criminal conduct involved here, but it's ethical and it's morals, and it's a situation where we could literally say we have a pedophile sitting in a public office. So as the people of Guyana, we need to stand up, call it out, continue to speak on these things, continue to call it out. And as we continue to speak and to expose, eventually our society is going to come into order. And that's what we want to see. Law and order in Guyana. And that's why I speak here. That's why I come on Mark's show. That's why Mark speaks up, because he wants to see the same thing. We share the same sentiments. We would like to see a democratic society. It's full of law-abiding citizens, and the people at the very top must themselves learn to obey the law, because if it's coming from the top and we have law-abiding leaders, then the people who are in the public, they will learn to follow suit and do the same. But if we have lawlessness on the top, that is transferable to the general public. And we don't want that as a country. We want to see a law-abiding society. Good night, and thank you, Mark, again for having me on this show. Thank you to all of the listeners. I am grateful again. I always say this, for all the love and the support I receive from you guys. A lot of you have been calling me. A lot of you have always been giving your friends, your family, whoever it is, my phone number, and they've been calling. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. I love you guys, and I pray, and I want you to pray for me that God will help our society to become a moral, law-abiding society. Good night.
All right. Thank you so much. I can just imagine what is going through Mr. Ramjatan's mind there when he's smiling as he listened to you. He's probably saying that one day he would support Shalon Washington for president.
Why not?
Gentlemen and lady, thank you all so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Todd, again, Mr. Ramjatan. Thank you. Don't be a stranger. Come back. Let me talk about the man who go around the Matikol. Is that what you call it? Go around the Matikol.
I happen to know Mark when he was a short tail boy, about a little 4-year-old, 5-year-old running around Manchester school.
Absolutely. Philippine analyst and so forth. Thank you, Kamraj. Kamraj is gone. Thank you, Miss Washington. And also thank you, Mr. Todd. We appreciate it. Healthy debate. We agree to disagree on some issues in a very respectful manner. That is what democracy is all about. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Yeah. And also to our listeners, we are thankful that you stayed up with us. We'll be back tomorrow, same place, same time. I'm not sure. I do believe they have a protest tomorrow, but we love to carry the protest once we have them. But you guys continue to speak out on the matter, continue to talk about it, continue to debate about it. And let us just get the ball rolling. Glad that we were able to have these lawyers here to talk about legal matters. That is what it is. Nevertheless, we'll be back tomorrow. It's 6 minutes after 11 o'clock. God bless you all. And for all of you who have been sending greetings, congratulating, well, both my son and my daughter, the younger ones. The older one is in England, just finished up his first year at Oxford. But the two younger ones, they're out, they're graduated now. And thank you for all of those greetings that you have sent us. We appreciate it from the bottom of our hearts. And I'm sure Emma might be fast asleep, and Jonathan too. God bless all of you. And if you have kids also who graduated, because remember, this is not a one-side affair. All of us, on behalf of all of us here at 107.1 FM, including all of you in the audience as well, we want to say congratulations to all of you who have kids and relatives and maybe nieces and nephews who have graduated as well. Or maybe you yourself graduated sometime this semester. So congratulations to all of you. It takes a village, guys. It takes a village. Let's continue to pray for Guyana, continue to pray for that victim, and hopefully soon we'll hear that there is going to be justice, at least the appearance of justice. My prediction is the file is going to be sent to the DPP. The DPP may send back the files for more information. A typical stalling kind of thing. God bless you all. See you tomorrow, right here on 107.1 FM. So long.
Hello, this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm, located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
Basement level vibes with another one, straight up blackness. Aye, who tell the truth? Mark Benscop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benscop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benscop, straight up from the root. Mark Benscop, who tell the truth? Mark Benscop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benscop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benscop, straight up from the root. Mark Benscop, I do it for the love, him not do it for no money. Straight up, him attack, educating everybody. Big up my friends and big up my family. Turn on the radio, catch the vibes, it's integrity. Straight up, Benscop stands for unity. One people, one nation, one destiny. Free up the truth in the air, even the blind can see. The deaf can hear, the dumb can talk, the cripple can walk. Boom. Who tell the truth? Mark Benscop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benscop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benscop, straight up from the root. Mark Benscop, who tell the truth? Mark Benscop, defend the ghetto.
Hello, this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm, located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
Amiga, need to stay.